Thank you, Delana. I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see this welcome slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'd love to have folks, as always, introduce themselves in the chat with your name, your personal pronouns, and where you're joining from today. And then we have a lot of information to cover, so we don't have time for extensive introductions from everyone, but I'd love to just have a couple people that might be interested come off mute and talk to us a little bit about what you're envisioning for 2026 as a check-in question. And Christy, I think we might have you on here twice. It's a little echoey. Thanks everyone who's dropping their intros in. It's great to see some new to me names and faces. Does anyone want to share something that they are envisioning or maybe manifesting for this year? Feel free to just unmute yourself. All right, no worries. We can ease back into the year. For time's sake, I'm going to keep us moving, but please continue dropping your intros in the chat and feel free to answer that check-in question as well. Just want at the start of every meeting, we like to go over our community commitments. So as a reminder, those are to move up and move back. And that's just an invitation for everyone to think about how they usually show up in spaces like this. If you're someone who maybe talks a little more, I encourage you to sit back and allow others some space, and vice versa. If you're usually more on the quiet side, we'd love to hear from you. And a reminder that no one knows everything, but together we know a lot, and we are here to learn together. And finally, at the Advocates Network, we like to presume positive intent in what our friends and colleagues are saying and doing, but we also want to be careful to acknowledge the impact of our words and our actions. And we also wanted to take a moment to start our meeting off today with an acknowledgement of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which was yesterday. This is a quote that I really enjoy about the sort of combination of power and love, and how power on its own is, can be used in certain ways, but the combination of power and love is really what will get us through this work and what makes this work meaningful. And I also just this morning was reading an article about how Martin Luther King Jr. when he was in Denver, met with a young Black mother named Rachel Noel, who then, because of their meeting, was inspired to run for a Denver school board. And she was one of the catalysts of racially integrating Denver public schools. So that's another way to just acknowledge the day and also the impact that we can all have on each other. And we also always start our meetings just by refreshing everyone about who Great Education Colorado is and what we stand for. So our vision is that through public education, every student throughout the state, regardless of their zip code, their learning needs, their language, identities, or the color of their skin, graduates prepared to lead their best life. And we want to accomplish this mission by harnessing the power of grassroots activism and diverse, inclusive networks to guarantee that public schools in every Colorado community are welcoming, and that they're adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. I know for some of you who were on some of our calls at the end of last year, we were talking about some ways that you might see the Advocates Network changing or just sort of deepening our work. And so we are not quite rebranding because we've always been this way, but just clarifying the way that we talk about the Advocates Network. So the Advocates Network, as a reminder, is Great Ed's community where aspiring change makers become action ambassadors for public education. Together, we're working for public schools that are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. And through the Advocates Network, Great Ed is preparing people to become confident education advocates. So we have these different sort of badges and levels within our Advocates Network. What we really want to communicate to everyone is that all people who care about public education are welcome in the Advocates Network. And whether you are an expert in school finance or policy or someone who's totally new to this world, we are very excited to have you here. And there is a place for you. And in fact, we need all of you. And then we just wanted to also sort of help clarify all of the things that Great Ed is working on. These are a number of different initiatives that we have going. We like to think of them as doors for ways that you can get involved with us in our Advocates Network. So our North Star, of course, is securing sufficient funding and supports for Colorado Public Schools to be able to meet the needs of every student. And our four major sort of buckets or doors that I'll highlight today. You may be most familiar with our Get It Done campaign, which is our work to demand that the Colorado State Legislature fully and fairly funds public education and that it implements the recommendations of the school finance adequacy studies. Closely tied to this, Great Ed is working with a number of partners across the state to ensure that our voters have the opportunity to endorse some sort of revenue-raising measure on the ballot in 2026, this November. And then we are doing lots of different things to promote public education really as the cornerstone of democracy and to challenge the privatization efforts that we're seeing creep into Colorado and the rest of the US. And then finally, we are very excited about our Every Student Welcome Network, which is a community building space that connects public education supporters to share information, resources, and policies to help ensure that every Colorado student feels welcome, safe, seen, and supported. So again, we're doing a lot of different things. There are a lot of different doors and opportunities for you all to plug in. But however you are engaging with Great Ed in this work, you are part of our Advocates Network, and we are super excited to have you here. So in terms of what you can expect from the Advocates Network this year, since this is our first meeting of 2026, we will continue to provide clear action steps and pathways to advance public education. I believe next week or the week after, we are launching a new monthly newsletter that's a shorter version of what you may be familiar with. It's focused on our Advocates Network group, and it is particular to action steps and opportunities to deepen your understanding of education funding and policy in Colorado. We are also soon going to be launching an updated event calendar on the Great Education website where you can easily see all the different kinds of meetings and opportunities that we have over the course of a month. We are very much looking forward to our Advocacy Day on Thursday, April 9th, and we hope you will save the date for that. And we will have more information on how to become an action ambassador, which is our sort of highest level of folks involved in the Advocates Network. So thank you again for all being here. Well, hopefully this is not too assaulting on your senses, this slide. But I was recently invited by some friends to put together a vision board for myself, and I thought this could be sort of a fun way for us to think about what this year is going to look like for grade ed. So we are going to continue doing work to ensure that all of our students across all their identities are welcome in school, that we're listening to youth voices and students of color, teachers of color, professionals of color. Um, this is a photo from our Advocacy Day last year, and we are very excited for Advocacy Day again this year, and just for continued opportunity to be in touch with our elected representatives, whether they're school board members, state representatives, or even at the federal level. Here's another picture of some of our state representatives doing a school visit last year. These are pictures from this fall of some of our staff being out in community, giving presentations, being at the No King's Day March. We have a lot of opportunities coming up in the next year where we will be out talking to community, and excited to hear from you and to spread the word about school funding, advocacy, and opportunities. And then this year, last but not least, we are launching a new partnership that's called Public School Strong Colorado, and it is convened by Great Ed. We are also working with PTA, the Education Association, and the Statewide Parent Coalition. And some of you on this call may already be signed up for the Public School Strong platform. You may be familiar with it. It's a national effort that Great Ed and these partner organizations have brought to Colorado. So this is kind of what our year is looking like and what you can expect from us. We're very excited. So we're going to take some time, as always, to give you some updates on state and federal education and funding news. I hope that you will forgive us. This section might be a little bit longer than usual, but as you can imagine, with the start of a new year, the legislative session, there's a lot happening already, so we have a lot of information to share. I invite questions. If you have any, I can do my best to answer them, and I believe Lisa is on as well and may be able to jump in too.
Lisa's unable to make it.
Oh, never mind. You're stuck with me. Okay, so to start off with, you may have seen in the news, on Great Ed Social, or from some other Colorado organizations, we have some really exciting education data. We saw that this past school year, the high school graduation rate in Colorado was at its highest level in over a decade, and our statewide dropout rate was at the lowest level on record. So at Great Ed, we see this really as a testament to the amazing work that's happening in our public schools. We know that everyone that's involved in the school ecosystem, from superintendents to teachers to parents, are really working hard to ensure that our kids are getting the best education. And these statistics are a testament to that. And also, this is an opportunity for us to reflect and imagine what would really be possible if our schools were fully and fairly funded, which we know is not where we are today. So this is some very exciting numbers to see. It's encouraging to see that the work that folks have been investing and that our students have been investing is paying off. And also, we know we still have work to do. Other education data that is a bit less hopeful, we're seeing that K through 12 enrollment has the largest decline since the beginning of the pandemic this past year. And so enrollment is also predicted to decrease in the coming school year as well. And some reasons, these numbers are from the Joint Budget Committee. Some reasons for this decline in enrollment that they suggested were lower birth rates overall, housing costs and cost of living, and of course, the effects of immigration policy in Colorado and our country in the last few years. Yes, Barbara, go ahead.
Yeah. Do we know like where kids are going to school? Are they just not going to school? Are they being homeschooled, going to private schools?
That is a great question. I think that from what I can remember of the presentation, I think that there is sometimes a move to online, but then we also know that some of those students that are going to school online then come back to public schools in person. So we may see a slight difference in the numbers that will come out in March. I think there, as you mentioned, it's also folks moving to private schools, and I would have to imagine, without knowing for sure, that the immigration policy is encouraging some families to just keep their kids home.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you.
Sure. Go ahead, Danielle.
Hi, I could just add one more point of interest. Maybe my sister is my sister is a first grade teacher here in Colorado, and she said that in the Front Range, and she said that like 2 years ago, her class was over 50% uh, non-native English speakers, so immigrant children. And because of immigration policy, there just are fewer people bringing their children to the US. She's in an area that has a lot of tech workers. And now she has only two non-native English speakers just in the span of 2 or 3 years. So I do think that that's another, it's an impact of the immigration policy, but not quite in the same way that you were indicating.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for raising that. And then I also see Stacy commented in the chat. Great question. I've seen parents of kids with disabilities are homeschooling due to not getting their needs met in the public school system. That is absolutely another thing that we're seeing as well. Thank you, Stacy, for raising that. And if anyone else has thoughts, I invite you to add those in the chat as well. I think there are many reasons for seeing these enrollment numbers dropping. Okay, so on to our 2026 Ledge session. As you probably all know, the Colorado State Legislature kicked off its session for this year last Wednesday. So it's been about a week. And one of the first bills that was introduced was actually the School Finance Act. It was sponsored by Senators Kolker and Kirkmeyer and Representative Hamrick. And for those who are more familiar with school finance in the legislative session, you may remember that this is a bit surprising because usually the School Finance Act is introduced later in the session. I think for the last few years, at least, the state legislature has sort of been working on other aspects of the budget before really focusing on education. So this year it was introduced very early, right at the start of session. However, we just want to also say that we likely won't see much action until after the March forecast, where we have new enrollment numbers, new sort of economic information. But for now, this, current version of the School Finance Act sets the base funding per pupil and total program for the coming school year. It also implements the current School Finance Act and doesn't have any sort of changes to the formula or policy. In terms of policies that Great Ed is working on and keeping in mind for this year, I know many of you on this call were super helpful last year in getting the state Senate to pass a resolution expressing the importance of public education and really committing to those adequacy studies. That happened, I believe, in April of 2025, towards the end of session. And so we are looking to do the same thing in the House. We have already been in conversation with state legislators that are interested, and this is one opportunity where we'll really be looking for all of your support to continue talking with your legislators about the importance of public education and school funding. And we will have more information as the session continues about who has signed on, where we're looking to, add some pressure for our legislators and get this resolution passed. And then if you've been on these calls, you have heard us in the last few months talking about the Blueprint for Student Success. We were joined in our December Advocates Network meeting by Representative Jennifer Bacon, with whom we and other subject matter experts, along with another group of legislators, are working to really look at those adequacy studies and what sort of policy changes would be needed to implement the recommendations. So thanks to the adequacy studies that were published last January, we know what further investment is needed for our students to be able to achieve the standards that we as a state have set for them. And so Representative Bacon and her group of legislators are doing work to sort of map out, if we had the funding for public education, if we had enough funding to get where we needed to go, what sort of steps would we take? And so these are two of the main areas that Great Ed will be focused on this legislative session. We also wanted to provide some updates about our state budget for this current year, which is FY 25-26, as well as for next year. So as a reminder, our state legislature will have to, before May, they'll have to pass a budget for next fiscal year, which starts in July. But because of some policy changes at the federal level in particular, we actually know that we have a shortfall for the current fiscal year in Colorado. So for the year that started in July and goes through the end of June 2026, there's an almost $400 million shortfall in our state budget. So this legislative session will be seeing lots of discussion about places that will need to make cuts in the budget. Medicaid is surely going to be a topic of conversation. It already has been one of the most popular topics. And while we know that, we've been told that the state is not planning to make any cuts to K-12 education, we also know that a lot of hard decisions are going to need to be made. And so we'll kind of have to wait and see what ends up being on the table, and we'll need to be ready to advocate for protecting public education dollars. We also know that this session, our legislature is going to need to think ahead to next fiscal year and prepare that budget, where we are anticipating an additional shortfall compared to where we are this year. And there's already been sort of some buzz and concern about whether the state legislature will be able to implement the new school finance formula at 30%. So all of that to say, there is a lot of uncertainty. I think we will continue hearing sort of from all sides about the state budget issues this year. And one thing that we know is that our work together as Great Ed, as our Advocates Network, and just generally as advocates for public education, we will really need to impress upon our state legislators how important public education and public ed funding is. All right, moving on to some ballot buzz. we have, there's another slide after this with information about another ballot opportunity. But just to start off, you have maybe by now heard in the news about the Colorado Education Association's work to place a measure on the ballot that would raise the Tabor cap for education. So they are hoping to have this measure referred by the state legislature so that it will appear on the ballot in November 2026 and allow all of us as voters to vote on it. This is primarily championed right now by the Colorado Education Association, but we are, of course, in contact with them and with lots of other partners in the education space in Colorado. And what this measure would do is raise the Tabor cap, or the cap of, which is the cap that the limit of what our state is allowed to collect in taxes and fees. They would want to raise that cap by the amount that is spent on K-12 through the state general fund. And right now they're saying this would increase K-12 spending by about 2% per year. We have also seen, not related to funding, we've also seen some anti-trans measures that we will likely need to fight against this year. So there are several that are in the signature gathering phase right now. I believe they have until February 20th or so, maybe the end of February, to collect enough signatures to actually get these initiatives on the ballot. So we will need to see how that goes. But just so folks are aware, Initiative 109 is one that would define gender based on physical anatomy in state statute and would exclude transgender people. It would also say that sports team would have to be designated for boys, girls, or co-ed athletes. And then Initiative 110 would prohibit healthcare professionals from knowingly performing any surgery on a minor for the purpose of altering biological sex characteristics. So we've heard from partners in the education space that One Colorado expects that at least one of these measures will appear on the ballot. Again, they're still in the signature gathering phase, so we have a little bit of waiting and seeing to do. But just wanted to let folks know about those. And if anyone else has further information, we would love to hear it. So feel free to share that in the chat or to follow up with me after. And then a third sort of ballot issue that we are really excited about at Great Education Colorado is this effort to place a graduated income tax on the ballot. So Great Ed is one of 6 organizations on the executive committee of a coalition called Protect Colorado's Future. There are, I believe, 16 organizations now on our steering committee. And for those of you who've been to these meetings every month, you have heard us talk about the titling process and all the various different language, different types of language and combination of words that we are testing out at the state title board. We have been challenged. Things that have passed the single subject challenge in the past are now being challenged because our opposition really does not want to see a graduated income tax on the ballot. So they are finding new ways to challenge ballot measures, even where we're using language that has passed muster in previous years. So we are working through the titling process. We are, as a coalition, confident that we will have a strong ballot measure come through that process. But we just don't have the final details on exactly which version it will be yet. But the measure generally, depending on exactly which version we decide on, is estimated to raise somewhere between $2 and $3 billion per year through higher tax rates for wealthier folks. So we like to highlight that this is actually a tax cut for Coloradans that make less than $500,000, which works out to be 97% of us. And it's only a tax increase for people that make $500,000 or more, which is about 3% of Coloradans. The current versions of the ballot that are going through the title process all include a call out for education, healthcare, and childcare, and there's sort of varying degrees of specificity about like how prescriptive they are for education and healthcare. But we definitely know that education is a huge part of this effort. We also have some really great polling that has come out of this coalition. They've done a number of focus groups and different polls and surveys over this fall. So we know that 70% of respondents to our poll, I think this is from December, agree with the statement that Colorado needs a better tax system that ensures the wealthy pay their fair share and that priorities like schools, childcare, and healthcare have the resources they need. Our polling has also showed that graduated income measures sustain support even after opposition messaging. So, as I said at the beginning of this slide, we know that we will have a lot of opposition toward this measure, and so it's very encouraging to see that the support is sustained even with those attacks. And we're very excited that we will begin gathering signatures for this initiative in February or March. So the clock is already ticking. We will have about 6 months to gather signatures in all 35 of our state Senate districts. And, there's like a certain amount that we'll need to hit in each district in order to have this on the ballot in November. So that's what we'll be working on in the next few months, and we hope that some of you here will be helping us out with that. I know I'm like speeding through a lot of information. Before I do this last update, I see Christy, your question in the chat about those anti-trans measures, 109 and 110 statutory. I am not positive actually, but I will figure that out and get back to you. Did you want to add something? Okay. All right. I believe this is our last update, and then we'll move into some action items. But again, on these calls, we have talked a lot about the Federal Tax Credit Voucher Program over the last few months. It's also known as the Educational Choice for Children Act. And some updates since December. So you may remember that in December, we delivered a sign-on letter and a petition to Governor Polis's office, asking him to opt Colorado out of this program, which would begin in January 2027. So even though that is when the governor's term would be over, he would still have the opportunity to opt us in as a state before that. So in December, we delivered these materials expressing our desire not to opt in. And we also shared those materials with all 40, I believe, gubernatorial candidates that have registered with the Secretary of State. We sent those materials off to all of them and invited them to a conversation with us where we could share more information about the program and our concerns. So earlier this month, we met with 2 candidates that took us up on that opportunity. And on that same day, actually, Lisa Weil, our executive director, spoke at a Zoom meeting with the Federal Department of the Treasury. So we were invited to that meeting by some of our national partners. There were also some of our counterparts from other states that were talking about how they've seen similar programs have a negative impact in, I believe, Florida and North Carolina is where they were from. And so Lisa was there sort of representing Colorado, expressing the point that Colorado voters have rejected voucher programs 3 times on the ballot. This is not something that we're interested in welcoming to our state, and speaking a little bit more specifically about some of the regulations. So some updates that we have from that meeting with the Department of the Treasury. SGOs, or scholarship granting organizations, will have to meet a certain criteria that is the same for SGOs in every state. But then all organizations that meet the criteria will be eligible to receive these donations. And so it appears that states will not have any sort of regulatory power or oversight to select which scholarship granting organizations are on this short list that can receive donations that are eligible for this tax credit. It is sort of an all or nothing situation, depending on whether our state is opted in or not. We also know that the Treasury has no timeline for when they are going to be finalizing these regulations. We met with them on January 9th, and they said that they couldn't share a timeline, and then one of their colleagues clarified they can't share a timeline because they don't have one. So we know that since the program is starting in 2027, the regulations will need to be finalized before that. But it's not really clear when we might see a draft. They did say that they will likely have a 60-day comment period after regulations are drafted. But we are not exactly positive, when these drafts will come out or when the regulations will be finalized. To this point, I know this is something that Great Ed has been talking about a lot in our partner organizations. We're very excited that our friends at Advocates for Public Education Policy are hosting an event tomorrow evening at 6:30 on Zoom that has a really great panel that can talk about this program in more detail. And so, Delana, if you are able to drop the link for that in the chat, that would be great. I'm going to, stop sharing my screen for just a moment. We have, looks like 20 minutes scheduled of our usual meeting time, and just a few action items to go over before we close out. So I want to give a moment for everyone to take a breath, ask some questions, and if folks have any reflections or thoughts about kind of how all this information feels like it's coming together for you, I would love to hear them. I see Cindy Bernard asked, can you share gubernatoriate's candidate's opinion of the program? Yes, that is a great question. So as I said, we reached out to all 40 of the candidates as of the beginning of December. And the folks that have said that they would, let me find this exactly. So we shared a form with them asking folks to sort of like officially register their position with us. Only 4 candidates ended up actually filling it out. So the folks that have said they would opt Colorado out, which is the stance that we are encouraging them to take, are Phil Weiser and David Hughes. There is a candidate named Sean Bennett, not to be confused with Michael Bennett, who has said that he would opt Colorado into the program. And then a candidate named Robert Moore said that he needs more information. And then we had 2 folks who joined us at our conversation earlier this month. One of them was sort of displeased with what we were saying and left the meeting before he could register his opinion. And then another candidate, Maria Orms, after our conversation with her, she was interested in learning more, but was probably going to opt in if she had the chance. So those are the folks we've heard from. There are still a lot of candidates, of course, that have not spoken on this, but actually, Attorney General Phil Weiser, who's running for governor, has been pretty vocal on social media that he would not support this program. So hopefully his outspokenness about this will encourage some of our other candidates to take a more official position. Go ahead, Barbara.
I have a couple questions, but the first one is, has Polis signed us up for this? I know he said he would, but is it officially done?
He has not officially signed us up. You're correct that he has said he would like to. But because the regulations are not even released yet, there's hasn't been an opportunity to actually sign on.
Well, that's good news. They're not very good at planning and implementing, so let's keep our fingers crossed. The other thing is, I was wondering, maybe the best way to ask the question is, are we on the same page, or are we at cross purposes between what CEA is doing and what we're doing with the graduated income tax?
That is also a great question that I know has been on folks' minds a lot and has come up in a lot of conversations that we've been having with Great Ed. So we really believe that these measures are very compatible. It's actually the best policy if we are raising the cap for education and also raising the amount of revenue that we as a state are collecting. But Christy, I saw you come off mute, so did you want to speak to that as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, in our conversations, we've made it clear to CEA that while we are supportive, we haven't seen the language yet, but that yes, we feel they're complementary to each other. My own personal concern is that there aren't going to be any Tabor refunds in the foreseeable future, which means even though we debruce those funds, there won't be any extra money garnered from it. So I think that's where they're really compatible, because if we can get that cap raised and bring more funds into the state, then we have an opportunity to really do something good. And when there are later extra money coming in that would have gone over the cap, we'll be able to keep it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. And I will say, maybe I'm repeating it or maybe I haven't said it yet this evening, but as I mentioned, Great Ed is very involved with Protect Colorado's Future and the graduated income tax measure. And we are in close conversation with CEA. I sort of teased this with my little vision board, but we are launching a new partnership that CEA is one of our collaborators on. And so that is called Public School Strong Colorado. Again, it's a national effort that we're bringing to our state, and we're working with CEA, PTA, and the Statewide Parent Coalition to tackle a number of issues in education through that platform. And so while we're still sort of ironing out what the details will look like, we imagine that we'll be sort of advocating for both in the work that we're doing through Public School Strong Colorado as like a full team. Thank you so much for the questions. Any other questions or reflections before we look at a few action items? All right, great. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen for a few more slides. So we are very excited that we are starting to accept pledges to gather signatures for the graduated income tax ballot measure with Grade Ed. I was just in a meeting this afternoon with our grassroots committee for Protect Colorado's Future, and we are building up a very robust signature collection plan, again, from probably February to August. So I personally am looking forward to hearing from folks that are interested in gathering signatures with us. You'll be hearing from me if you are filling out this form. And then we also wanted to invite just those of you that are on this call this evening that are active members of our Advocates Network to participate in regional conversations that Protect Colorado's Future is having with sort of close friends and partners. We will be having additional meetings and opportunities a little bit later in the campaign that are more open to the public. But for now, the purpose of these regional conversations is to share more detailed information with folks about like what the measure is and what it would mean. We want to hear from folks in different parts of the state about how you recommend talking about this in your communities and sort of what messaging do you think might work better or worse compared to other parts of the state. Are there certain groups that are really important to have on board with this, that sort of thing, and just have like regional expertise in these conversations. And then, of course, part of those meetings is also to get some commitment from the groups and individuals that we're meeting with to see how they might be able to support us in different ways. So thank you, Delina, for dropping the links for both of these opportunities in the chat. If you have any questions, I would be happy to chat more. I'll drop my email in the chat. And then I think this is our last slide. Another opportunity to take action is, again, as I mentioned, joining us for the Public School Strong Colorado kickoff, which is on Thursday, February 5th. So just to sort of help folks understand the difference of these Advocates Network meetings and a Public School Strong Colorado meeting. Public School Strong Colorado, again, is in partnership with these 4 organizations. We are, coming at education from sort of different lenses. We have expertise in some different issue areas, but we are coming together with support from some national partners to all sort of organize and advocate for education together. So the Public School Strong Colorado meetings will be a little bit more focused on organizing. We'll have, we are working towards having breakout groups of people organized by region or local teams or school districts. Whereas these monthly Advocates Network meetings that you're on right now, as you've seen today, are generally a little bit more focused on providing information and updates, having a dialogue about what's happening in public education, and then sharing some action steps with you all. So we would love to see you at both, but we know that is a lot of meetings. I'm sure you're all also on others as well. So it's sort of up to you about how you're able to engage and what kind of opportunities you're looking for. All right, and then as I mentioned earlier, we would love to have you save the date for Great Ed's Advocacy Day. It is on Thursday, April 9th. We will have a program and then be heading over to the Capitol to speak with our state legislators about probably about the state budget, about the resolution that we're working to pass in the House, and about the blueprint for student success. So we will have more information as that date draws closer. but we'd love to have you join us. And I will drop the link one more time for the A for PEP webinar tomorrow. That's on the voucher program. All right, and then I see Delana also put the link in the chat. The February meeting registration that she put there is for this meeting, the Advocates Network. And our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 10th. All right, I talked so fast that we actually ended a few minutes before 5:30. So thank you all again for joining us this evening. Like I said, it's really exciting to see some names here that are new to me. You may not be new to the Advocates Network, but feels new and exciting to me as I've only been here for a few months. If anyone has any questions, I will stick on for a few more moments. I'm also happy to chat via email. I know we've laid a lot of information out for you today, and we've talked about a lot of opportunities to get involved with Grade Ed. So if you ever have questions, we are always happy to help you think about which program or opportunity is the best fit for you and what you're looking for. So thank you all again for being here, and I hope that you have a great evening.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Thank you. Great information.
Thank you.
I don't know what happened. It's not letting me stop the